Today we will explore a different scenario. We will suppose that after the legal vote for independence, the separatists actually had a plan to fight the Spanish forces, or at least a better plan than going into exile or jail. So, if they had started a revolution in their own terms, could the Independentists win a 2018 Catalonian war? Before we go into details, let's quickly say that as I forecasted in the previous video, independence has failed. Catalonian police has sided with the Spanish government and the province is under control. Having said that, we will explore a war scenario that will give the separatists the upper hand in 3 key areas, and we will see if on their best setup, they can win a war against Spain. We will suppose that they have all Catalan police on their side and prepare to battle against Spanish forces for the Republic of Catalonia. We will also suppose that they have the will of the people to fight a war, and we will analyze if arming civil population to fight a war in Europe is possible. I think that with these 3 key factors, the separatists do have an opportunity to win their independence. In this war scenario, we will have 3 rules. We will give the independentists the initiative, so they will be attacking Spanish forces in police stations, military bases, and as well as in the streets. Second, we will suppose that the Spanish army will need 3 days to get ready to enter with full force, and that the central government in those 3 days is trying to know what is happening. Because of this, the third rule will only take into account forces in Catalonia and will exclude Spanish Navy and Air Force. I will grant the victory to the independentists if they can banish in 3 days all Spanish forces in Catalonia and prepare defenses for a long war that will shock Europe and put international pressure in the Spanish government to end the war and negotiate independence. And if they cannot, I will assume that the Spanish army reaches Catalonia and destroys with superior weapons and numbers the independentist movement. As a quick note, I will consider very heavy infantry to military units armed with machine guns, grenade launchers, and supported by light armor. Heavy infantry would be police forces armed with assault rifles or submachine guns with body armor and helmets. Light infantry will be police units with pistols and some body armor and training, and militia will be armed gangs composed by extremists from the separatist movement. The Catalan police, or Mossos d'Esquadra, is normally under the command of the regional government, and we will suppose that they will side with the independentists. There's a lot of information about how the Catalonian regional government has tried to arm this police force with weapons of war, and how the Spanish Defense Ministry has stopped them. For example, in this first article, we can see that the Spanish Ministry of Defense stopped the purchase of 850 submachine guns and assault rifles for the Catalonian police force. In the next article, we can see how Catalonia has acquired 100 precision rifles with only 7 snipers on the ranks. And in this last article, we can see how the government holds back the purchase of 500 grenades for the police. Well, if you ask me, I would suppose that the Catalonian government was trying to make an army out of a police force. And, well, in this scenario, we will grant their wishes. So, let's suppose that they could have bought all the weapons that we have mentioned. There would be around 1,000 firearms, adding them to the 2,000 assault rifles and submachine guns that they already have. So, the 17,000 Mossos would be divided into 3,000 heavy infantry, 14,000 light infantry, and 2,000 police vehicles that they will use to move into position to attack the Spanish forces. It's also interesting that they don't have any armored units, but they do have 20 helicopters that could be used as recon or light gunships. The Catalans are highly divided in an almost even 50-50, but this scenario is in favor of the independentists, so we will suppose that 50% of the Catalonians that support the government are non-active or they have left Catalonia as refugees. According to Catalonian demographics, we can see that the region has a total population of 7.5 million people. If we suppose that 50% of the Catalonian population is independentist, that gives us 3.75 million people. We can estimate that 1/3 of that population will be children and elders, another third will be capable men, and another third will be capable women. Usually in war, you only get 1/3 of that kind of population that are capable to go to the front, which is 1,250,000 capable fighting force. But it's very unrealistic to think that you can arm all those people or that all of them would like to go to war. So a question rises, how many of them could we arm? In this article, we can read that the Spanish National Police seized 10,000 military weapons from a mafia that bought them decommissioned from the army, repaired them, and they were ready to be sold. Supposing that the separatists could get their hands on an arsenal of this magnitude, the biggest in the black market, we could arm the most extremists amongst them. And in this scenario, we'll give these weapons to them. In Catalonia, we have a total of 200,000 shotguns for hunting, 20,000 hunting rifles, and 10,000 weapons seized. We will disregard the 200,000 shotguns because the only legal ones are the double-barreled hunting ones with ammunition for birds or rabbits. We will suppose that out of the 20,000 rifles, 10,000 will go to the Independentist side, as well as the 10,000 seized weapons. So out of the 1.2 million capable force, we can only arm 20,000 of them. Many of you could think that the number of combatants in the militia is very low. But for example, ISIS on their prime controlled a population around the one in Catalonia and only had 40,000 fighters. This 20,000 plus the 17,000 in the police makes an army of 37,000, which is also the votes of the most extremist political side in Catalonia, the anarchists from the coup. If you still think that the numbers in the separatists are pretty low, I will give you two other arguments. Think that A, there is no more weapons, and B, this is like teleporting the entire ISIS army to Spain overnight. So yeah, what do you think about that? Now we move on to analyze the Spanish police and army forces in Catalonia. The Guardia Civil is a military police force controlled by the Ministry of Defense. As a military unit, they are heavily armed, and we can count on their ranks 6,000 heavy infantry, as well as 600 vehicles and 10 helicopters. The National Police is 6,000 strong, but only 1,000 of them have assault rifles, so we could count them as 1,000 heavy infantry and 5,000 light infantry. They also have 600 police vehicles and 10 light armored APCs, as well as 10 helicopters. The Spanish army in Catalonia has two military bases, one in Barcelona and the other one in Girona. This force is a mechanized mountain infantry regiment called Arapiles. It has 3,000 soldiers heavily armed, as well as 50 amphibious infantry fighting vehicles, another 50 APCs, and 300 other vehicles. We will consider the amphibious infantry fighting vehicles as armor and the APCs as light armor. If we compare both sides, we can see that the Spanish have 10,000 heavy infantry to the 3,000 on the separatist side. There is no comparison on light infantry, as the Spaniards only have 5,000 policemen to the 14,000 policemen of the Catalonians, plus an additional 20,000 militia. The total amount are 15,000 in the Spanish side to 37,000 on the separatist side. In war, there's a rule to ensure that an attack will succeed, and that is the 3-to-1 rule. You attack with 3 times the amount of soldiers that are defending to ensure victory. The Independentist doesn't have these numbers, plus they don't have the military training of the Spanish forces. Also, the 110 armored vehicles in the Spanish side are a force multiplier, as the separatist has nothing to destroy them. In my opinion, the first day would be a total chaos in the cities as the people are trying to leave a war zone. On the second day, we will have attacks on military bases and police stations and the siege of most of them. But on the third day, I would forecast that the army with their mechanized regiment would alleviate some of the sieges, and I don't think that the separatists could invade the Spanish bases as they are normally underpowered in weapons. The fourth day, around 100,000 Spanish soldiers will roll into Catalonia, ending the rebellion. It's true that in this wargame, the Independentists have the people and the police on their side, but because the Spanish have a modern army, police units to back them up, superior weapons in the field, and international support from NATO, I decided that the Spanish will win this war. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Here you can watch the first episode of the series, and I hope I'll see you all in the next episode of Who Would Win Catalonian War Edition.